Naveen Adusumilli. I'm an extension economist with LSU AgCenter, and along with me would be Mr. Blake McCartney here. He's a former in Red River Parish, Northwest Louisiana. I'm an economist, so if you all been to the opening session this morning with Jason Cruz and the general session, I'm going to talk about the economic perspective on those irrigation practices. And Blake and I would probably do a back and forth. Probably ask him to speak about some of his experience on the farm, but he has another set of slides too. All right. 2015 drought index map. I told the 2016 was all green, so we're pretty wet. So the green is the wet, and the darker the color, that's where we are pretty dry. So talking from a Louisiana perspective, we are orange and red in July 2015. And July is the middle of irrigation season, May to September. So what does this mean? Come July, we're in that place with red and orange. We see a lot of pumps cranked up, fields wet, tailwater running. Remember that? We'll talk again. Now combine that with this. The last number is 2015, folks. 974 beans, $74 corn. So, irrigation is one of the variable inputs that has the most potential to save, because this one is a global supply and demand. There's little we can do. But on our farm, we can definitely take care of that irrigation and save some money to improve our bottom lines. Going back, if you remember Jason's presentation this morning, he mentioned one cool thing. It's not rocket science, very simple. Relationship between water and yield is not linear at all. So we have increasing returns to a certain aspect, then if not, the yield is not going down, it's not even improving. So whatever you're putting in is not giving us more returns. So that's a simple graph that we pulled out. So what does that mean? So there's always that need. The picture on the extreme left, that's a three-phase electric motor in RCS Bifanel. We'll talk about that. Surge valves, flow meters, and other conservation practices. I'm not an engineer, and here are engineers here. Dr. Davis is our irrigation engineer from LSU AgCenter, and she does a lot of work on demo plots and provides me this information to run these economics. So Bifani and I, we did an irrigation analysis here. The left is the data that Bifani provided. Electric and deep well turbine pumps. So how much does it cost per acre range when we're using electric as a fuel source and diesel as a fuel source? So I'm only talking about the graph on the left side. So roughly about $2.85. On the right side, this is LSU AgCenter analysis. We did both diesel and electric as well as surface and groundwater. So we added a little bit of a matrix to it. So take home story there. It costs roughly about $3 to $4 an acre range to put that water. Now, go back to the previous slide. If you're talking about any of these irrigation efficiency practice, and if it saves us one irrigation event, that's 3 acre ranges times $3, $9 an acre. Not rocket science. That's what we're talking about. And that's what Jason was stressing this morning as well. The next two slides are slightly, let me take a step back here. Talk about this. So, our most efficient improvement might not be always economical. And here I would ask Blake to talk about an experience they had on their farm when Biff Andy was still working for NRCS. They came on their farm, did some pump testing. Blake, you want to pitch in there?
Yeah, the way our farm is set up, we're one central pump location out of, that we're picking up out of the river, the Red River. We've got to go across the levee. We've got about 3 miles of pipeline that we manage with one pump station. So it's a high horsepower diesel pump motor. When Biff came out, just in the first few minutes of them running flows and checking the diesel usage on that pump, when we got up to the maximum that we were capable of getting out of our pump, we were about 5,500 gallons a minute, running about 1,800 RPMs on the motor. So we felt like we were doing good. We were be able to cover the acres, in a timely manner. But just by idling the pump back, the motor back to roughly 1,500 RPMs, we only dropped our water down to 4,700 to 4,800 gallons a minute. But our fuel usage went from nearly 15 gallons to 9 gallons per hour on the motor. So when you look at the economics of that, it's a no-brainer. Slow your motor back down, you're losing a few hundred gallons a minute, but overall you're still able to run the same number of runs of poly. You know, you're covering your same acres, maybe not in quite as fast as you would have, but your fuel usage was cut, you know, dramatically. And so that was just something just in the first few minutes of him showing up that we said, well, we know where we're running our pump from now on. You know, 1,500 RPMs, and that's where we set it, you know, for the rest of the year. And so it was a good, you know, good information that we were able to gain pretty quickly.
Poly pipe.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all for.
Try to do some of the same, but we're sending pivot irrigation, so you gotta slow your engine down too much, so the
Right.
generator down.
Mm-hmm.
You get the voltage.
Right.
If you're on a diesel engine.
Mm-hmm.
We work with different pulley sizes to try to.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know much about it, but talking to some of the people that looked at some of ours was, you know, to change some of your gear ratios to optimize your the diesel engine with your.
Send go from 6 to 4.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that was I mean, when Blake told me that story, it was like we ran the numbers, and our most efficient, I would say, is not our most economical as per the numbers. And let me also touch on this one again. I think Blake can pitch in one more time where they had a diesel engine and they were planning to see if running an electric line would be more economical, and that's why we added a different matrix there with diesel, electric, and then diesel surface water and electric surface water. Because how much was the cost, like if you remember the number?
Yeah, our pump location, we were a good ways from an electric source. It was a little over a mile of line that the power company we were going to have to run into there. And with it being a higher horsepower requirement on that pump, 3-phase electric that we needed, they actually never gave us a set price. It was that bad. Whenever they came out, they said, well, you're going to be over 100,000. We said, that's good enough. You know, we know we can get a power unit cheaper than that, and, you know, run diesel for several years before we'd ever see a return on that. So, you know, and even so, on another farm, we set a well, and we set it right at the end of an existing power line. But because of needing 3-phase power, they still had to they had to come set one power line, one pole, hang the transformers, and just that in itself cost us $7,000 for that. And you know, now they did work with us as far as extending that on a payment plan of no interest. So we're paying an electric bill every month to overcome, you know, their cost of having to do that for us. But it's just one of those things that even though, you know, when you look at that, your first thought is, well, electric's the only way to go. But when you figure in the total, you know, that's something to be sure that you have your total numbers before you make your decision. You know, are you going to have extra power lines? Are they going to have to hang transformers? And some electric companies work with farmers different in different areas, but that's just something to be sure that you have, you know. Yes.
How deep are the wells in your area?
We went to 90 feet, so they're not very deep. We started hitting water at 40. I mean, we've got from 40 down screened, and so it's not a deep well, but in that particular well, we're getting about 1,100 gallons a minute out of that well.
So from an efficiency standpoint, even though electric seems to be economically cheaper by the numbers, but you take into account the startup cost, there's no way, because you can buy a diesel engine at half the price with the startup cost that the electric companies are charging to run these lines. All right, so going back to this was a 2014 study or a resource concern from NRCS. You see the number one bullet point right there? Inefficient use of irrigation water. So what it means was 51% of the farmers in Louisiana said they've been putting water inefficiently and they wanted to tackle that resource concern if there are additional liquid dollars. Now here's an interesting story following that. In 2016, LSU AgCenter did a nutrient management survey, and I was leading this project when we put out that survey. Look at number 2, 3, and 4, surge valves, flow meters, and moisture sensors. And remember the previous graph where they said they want to tackle inefficiency of putting water on the farm. So the blues is all, yes, they have a surge valve on their farm, flow meters, and moisture sensors. And the next color, a little bit darker, is no, they do not. And the interesting is that the very last one does not apply. It should apply. These are row crop farmers. There's no, but it doesn't apply. So if there are any surge valve flow meter dealers here, and that's a golden state there, not California. Again, calculating by the numbers one more time. This was taking the cost of a flow meter, cost of a surge valve into account, and again, all of these practices qualify independently by an RCS for cost share, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. What I mean by independently. So these are not taking into account the cost share. This is totally out-of-pocket expense, meaning a farmer is spending all his or her money to buy a flow meter or a surge valve. And with the data that some of our farmers and demo plots from our irrigation engineer, we average about a 22% decrease in water use with some of these efficiency measures. And Stacia here, she can comment on it if on that number, on the 22%, 25% reduction in water use with these efficiency measures.
So the only number that we've gotten that I feel confident giving is from the surge valve specifically. That was closer to 30% savings.
So what we did, and if you remember Jason's presentation this morning, he was talking about a 25% reduction in irrigation water use with these efficiency measures as well. So we did a little bit of sensitivity analysis because every farm is different, application style is different. So what happens if there is a 10%, 25%, 40% reduction in water use if you're using a surge valve on that practice? And of course, diesel prices are not that high, but we still use a higher end price, $3 and $3.75 a gallon. So what those numbers mean is, compared to a continuous irrigation, if you have a surge valve on your farm, $160 is more that you make if you achieve a 10% efficiency in irrigation water application. That's what that first number means, and so on and so forth. So let's say if you achieve a 25% reduction in water use or an improvement in 25% efficiency at $3 a gallon compared to a continuous irrigation, you're going to make $168, and that's average. There are farmers who make a little bit more than $168 as well. Okay. We are a state that is considered humid, or we are part of a humid region, but we are still a state that irrigates about 1 million acres only in row crops, and this is a projection of a 2060 by USDA where the surface water withdrawals would go up. So darker the colors, the greeners is the surface water withdrawals will decrease, and yellows and reds, the surface water withdrawals go up. So looking at those numbers is always, even though we're part of a humid region, we still have a lot of value in making these efficiency improvements, and from the economic side, absolutely. We have no doubt about that. So, and this is an irrigation calculator that LSU AgCenter would be released very shortly. It's a row crop, has all the row crops, soybean, corn, sorghum, and cotton. You select your irrigation system and put your efficiency measures, yes or no, and it will automatically calculate the net returns. And it's up for release probably in the next month or probably end of this month. Depends on end of February or probably early March. But once this is out, everyone has a smartphone now, so please download, play with it, see what does those numbers mean with respect to your form. Finally, take home. Even though again, I worked in Texas in Amarillo, so that's the driest part of the state. So when I came to Louisiana, it's considered humid, but we still irrigate a lot of acres. July, last 4 years, we did see drought in the peak irrigation season, so these efficiency measures, of course, saves us money and water. And this practice performed differently on every farm, so this is not a silver bullet or the information that applies to, or you'd see the same numbers on every farm, but we're very confident that as irrigation engineer Sesha was talking about, the 30%, close to 30% is very realistic. With that, I'll ask Blake to go ahead with his presentation, but if you have any questions, please feel free to stop and ask.